What's up, friends, and welcome back to the show. Today, it's a hot one because we're talking saunas with Peter Nelson, who is the founder of SISU Saunas. Expect to learn what SISU is. It's more than a word, it's more than a brand name. It's a philosophy, and it's a really cool and empowering one. And that is what Peter is. He's an inspirational guy. Expect to learn why he does things like 50K ultra races for his 30th birthday, or what it was like to run across Antarctica, or his crazy last minute dash through the airport to get in front of Cam Hanes and do a surprise podcast, build him a sauna, why you should be getting in saunas more. What are some of the health benefits? What's happening in the sauna world with other ideas like the pop-up tents or the sauna blankets? What should you be looking for? Should you be blessed to get inside of an American Amish milled Sisu sauna? What can you expect? And just so much more. We talk parenting, we talk business, we talk growth, we talk faith, we talk family. Let's get into it with Pete Nelson. For your 30th birthday, you're treating yourself to a 50-kilometer race. Why would you do such a thing?
So my 30th birthday, I've always had my goal to have ran 30 ultramarathons by my 30th birthday. And it just so happens right now I'm sitting at number 29. So I'm going to run 50 kilometers, which is 31 miles, and run 31 miles for my birthday. And I'm so excited about it because I get the fortune of being able to run with a lot of my friends along the way. So my wife, I kind of kiboshed my wife's plans. She was she was going to surprise me with having somebody show up every single mile. That's near and dear to me.
Wow.
And I found out about it, but I don't know who's going to be running. So that's the mystery. But I get to run with 30 of my close friends on my 30th birthday. And then that'll bleed right into my son's birthday party and my birthday party. We're separated by 4 hours. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, it'll be a great day.
Dude, that is so rad. I don't know what I'm more impressed by. The fact that you've got 30 friends that can run, even with you, even just a mile. Like, I'm trying to think of all the friends that I have. I've got some pretty fit friends here up in Cookeville, Tennessee, but I don't think I could get 30 of them together to do that. So that's pretty impressive.
That's a total kudos to my wife. She is way more of a planner than I am. I was just planning on going out running 15-ish miles out, 15-ish miles back, and then jump in the sauna and the cold plunge, throw some meat on the grill, and call it a day. But she's way more of a planner, so real, huge kudos to my wife.
That's what we need. That's why we love them, eh? That sounds like a perfect day, man. Good sweat and some meat on the grill and probably a sauna along the way. So
Yes.
your company, Sisu, it's more than just a name. Sisu is it's an ethos almost, right? Tell me what the name means and where you found inspiration from that.
Yeah, so Sisu, when you really boil it down, and our ethos from Sisu is grit over glory, which in the literal translation of Sisu from the Finnish language to English is perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. And it's a thing that Finns from Finland embody. And Finland is also the birthplace of sauna. But the thing that Finns do exceptionally well is that they grit out and they fight through really difficult times, but they manage incredible relationships along the way. And so for every two people, there's one sauna, which means that for the
Wow.
average 4-person family, there's two saunas at their home. And that's just where they go to break bread. It's not over their phones. It's not over the TV. They'll eat, hang, and then they go break bread in the sauna every single day. So when we were looking to bring that mantra over into the United States, what we ended up realizing is that there's a huge lack of toughness in the United States right now, and I think people are hyper aware of that coming out of a post COVID world. And for us, like the grit over glory mantra is really rooted in the idea of showing up consistently every single day, doing the hard right over the easy wrong, and not doing
Mm,
it for the accolades or the limelight or the trophy. It's rather doing what God's calling you to do every single day because you know it's the right thing to do, while also understanding that we get to choose our grit moments, the moments where we go and choose the self-inflicted pain versus the pain choosing us. And
mm.
so the more that we could set ourselves up for success by choosing to do hard things, the more we're going to be able to react to the things that choose us where it starts to get hard.
I love that. Yeah. Goggins talked about in his book this idea of chosen and unchosen suffering. that basically if you choose the suffering voluntarily, you do really hard things. And if anybody's a moniker for doing hard things, it's it's Goggins, right? That when that adversity finds you in life, the unchosen suffering, that again, to your point, you're better able to handle it. And I think there is another axiom there that's like easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easier life. And it sounds like that's not only a mantra that you're letting run through the company, but it's something that you've followed for a long time. Is this something that's always been with you, or something you learned later in life?
Growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, it's a blue collar town. It's a town where mom and dad work most likely a very traditional middle wage job, and you had to take care of your own. Like my dad and my mom both were incredible athletes growing up, but they both came from large families. My mom was one of four. My dad was one of nine. My dad was the youngest. My mom was the youngest. So they were often picked on. But along the way, we got to see our parents struggle and suffer. Like my dad and my mom both had emergency brain surgeries while we were kids. I mean, and in fact, I was in a pretty brutal car accident with my sister and my mom when I was 4 years old, where my mom had a seizure at the wheel of the car. And my
Damn.
dad had his emergency brain surgery uh, right after having a stroke. And it was a rare stroke that had occurred 24 hours within his tongue cancer removal. And
Hmm.
so being able to see our parents go through these medical complications, but continue to show up for the family, the kids, and do so in a way that they didn't seek out, like, hey, the attention's on me now. It's rather like, hey, we're going to take care of this situation. We're going to be better for it. And we're going to inspire others through this process. That's what they did. So my dad, his story is incredible. We get to see the true manifestation of Sisu and grit is really my parents, and specifically my dad's story is more so recent. But to take a long story short, my father, the last 12 years, has ran 157 marathons or ultra marathons across
Damn.
that period. And that includes multiple Boston Marathon qualifying spots. That includes 100-mile races. That includes 50-mile ultras. That includes multiple races where him and I ran and competed against each other and with each other. And 2 years ago, when he got diagnosed with a tongue cancer, he had to go in and they had to graft skin and vein from his arm to recreate a new tongue. And through that process, he had to relearn how to speak because
Hmm.
they were taking all this learned musculature and neuromuscular connection with your tongue. So he had to relearn how to talk. But that's when the stroke occurred. And that stroke was a rare stroke to where they had to catheterize to the top of his head and then open up the back of his neck as well. And through that process, he had to relearn how to walk. And when you're 60 years old, you've gone your entire life as an absolute legend, athletic specimen, philanthropist, but still blue collar, like middle wage worker. It's hard, and it's equally as hard on the family and the people around. So for us, my dad, it was March of 2023. He finally gets home. He's on a walker. The doctor essentially tells him you're probably going to be walker bound for a very long time, and then you might get back to running. Within 5 months of relearning how to walk, he ran 40 miles at Hell on Hogsback, which is our charity race that we host,
Wow.
where we provide the opportunity for people to run 12 hours for max distance up and down this hill in Cleveland. And all the proceeds go to funding cancer patients' medical treatments for those who can't afford it. So just that when you're talking about what Sisu and like where we learned it's it's not far from us. We see it within our own family, within our friends, and when you have that perspective of understanding that hard times are often some of our biggest opportunities to make large impacts and be able to really tell our story, you just lean into it hard.
That's incredible, man. Yeah, what a living embodiment of the Sisu philosophy and grit, to actually see it firsthand up close and personal just makes it land in a whole different way. And what I think is really cool about hearing you tell that story is that in many ways, all of us, we look up to our fathers as like superheroes, essentially, right? And your dad has kind of had to like live through some of the toughest trials and tribulations there. And you really get to say, like, wow, my dad is an actual superhero. And now, kind of carrying the torch of that because you're a dad. Like, what did you learn? It sounds like both your parents had their fair share of trials and tribulations, but also an awful lot of grit and something that you've really been able to model positively. What's something you've learned through them that you'd like to impart on your children as well?
Great question. And to me, the thing that I look back upon with my parents is that encountered struggle and they encountered really difficult times where it felt like things were out of control, but they handled it with grace and purpose and love and family, and not the other stuff that would essentially make it like an ingenuine and selfish experience. The thing that I carry most from that I apply to our kids is letting our kids see us struggle and being upfront with them of the things that we go through, but then also equally sharing the high moments and letting them know like what fulfillment feels like and what like happiness feels like and what the type 2 fun looks like. And so our kids are always at our races. They're always
Nice.
at, our kids have been have joined us in installs with CC where they get to meet some awesome people, but they get to see like what the work looks like and they get excited about that. So when we're on our family walks, often our son will go out and essentially run like a quarter mile way out and then come back. And he just loves doing it because that's what he sees through mom and that's what he sees
Mm,
through dad. And so I really believe that leading through action is great, especially for a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, or about to be a 4-year-old and now 2-year-old. Leading through action is huge because they're definitely at the age right now where they don't listen as much as they see.
yeah.
But I'm excited for as they continue to develop, for them to continue to see us, go through our struggles, but then also for us to be upfront and like have conversation about like what happens when dad is in a pit and like what happens when mom is really tired and struggling but she still needs to get done. Like what does that conversation look like? And they're too young to really understand that right now, so we just do our best as parents to lead through action.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I agree because my kids are very similar age, and I think you're right. They don't understand it as a like concept, but they understand it as a knowing because they see it. And seeing is really believing. It's the cliche that actions speak louder than words, right? And you could reflect this in a similar, scenario if your parents had acted differently and they'd always talked about, being able to carry the burden and all of that stuff, but then acted very differently. It's like a little bit of a wound, right? Because you're talking out of two sides of your mouths. And I think that's something we've got to be very careful of as parents, is to not say one thing and do the complete opposite. So it's like, can you be in integrity as a parent to acknowledge that, hey, we don't have it all figured out. There's no manual that comes with parenting. You're basically just winging
Right.
it. You get advice and you can read books and all that stuff, but you're basically just thrown into the fires and you're like, okay, how do I raise this person so that they're inspired by me and I let them become their own person and not put too much of my baggage on them? Well, I've got to work on myself. I have to be in
Right.
integrity. I have to do what I say and I've got to mean what I say. Because kids, yeah, they might not be able to figure out exactly what's going on when dad says this, but like they see it and they feel it and they're watching you too. And I think that's really cool. And it's just, yeah, it's a wonderful teacher, right? Because it really adds something to the, I don't know, like the seriousness, like the growing up aspect of like, oh, now it all like everything matters, but now it really matters when you have children. It really it helps you find so much more purpose. At least in my experience, has it been similar for you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I cannot agree more. And I just feel like, especially like right now, our son Crew is 2 weeks out from being 4. He's extremely verbal. He is pent up with energy. He's super weird and wacky like me, but very systems processes oriented like mom. And then our daughter Charlie, on the complete flip side, is
Mm,
very much like me. We're non-detail orientation and very, hodgepodge and ornery, goes things about my own way. But she's more like Paige in terms of like personality type and warmth. It's really interesting, like Paige and I, because we lead, we do our best to lead through action and explain things to our kids in ways that they understand. I get a lot of fulfillment about seeing like their development as little humans,
yeah,
and just doing our best to guide them so that they're best set up for success when they're with their friends at
yeah,
daycare and with family. And if somebody comes over to babysit, I want them to act civil,
yeah.
and sometimes that's not the case when they're 4 and 2, it's sometimes it's a roll of the dice. But yeah, to me with having kids, and God willing, more kids, uh, you mentioned it before, and I believe it so much that you can't act in like fake who you want to be around your kids. Your kids will eventually see that and
Yeah.
see that dad and mom were phony. you have to live out exactly what you are telling your kids. And you have to set that standard now, and you have to work on yourself now and understand that you're never going to be perfect at it. But your ability to manifest what you want yourself to be and then act on it and then carry out those exact standards and values and let your kids see that and know that you are working on that is what's going to provide them success later on.
Yeah.
So that's our mantra as parents, and that's exactly how our parents raised us.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said, man. And I think it will help offset something you said earlier, which I'd love to dig into a little bit more. This kind of like culture of weakness, culture of softness. We've gotten a little bit soft. We've gotten a little bit entitled. We've lost our way, really. We've lost our, what I would say is like our humanness, our primal nature in a way, which much of our evolution was so, it was tough and it required a toughness. And you know, that cycle of, you know, hard times create strong people create hard times because they become weak and all of that stuff. What do you think? What do you think is going on? What is it about the culture that is creating a culture of weakness?
I think it's exactly what you just illustrated. It's we're coming out of a easy time. Truthfully, the fact that I could operate my entire life out of my phone and not have to move from the couch for me to be able to get all my dopamine spikes, all of my work done. Uh, the fact that it's so convenient that I could order food from my phone and it arrive and me only take 10 steps to my front door to grab it. And that's a problem. Like that's an easy time. That is a really easy time. And we're not far removed from a cell phone world. I mean, we're just
Right.
25 years out from that. And I just think that right now we're still in this easy time. And we actually, as a society, have to choose our self-inflicted pain way more than the pain choosing us these days. And that's a blessing into of itself. You know, if you are listening to this podcast right now, you are an exception.
Hmm.
You are an outlier. Like the fact that you even have access to listen to the podcast means that you are in a position where like life is honestly like a lot easier than more than half the world, where they don't have any access to technology, any access to a lot of like the things that give us that rush and dopamine that we all have become addicted to. So I think that that's what's really created this time. And you're seeing this now, especially in our the groups within the wellness spaces, that people are intentionally choosing to do group-based activities, doing and choosing hard things.
Yeah.
And those hard things are now creating memories and core memories, and now it's encouraging them to do more self-inflicted hard things. And God forbid something happens where life as we know it, as it is easy right now, starts to get really, really hard again. Like I'd rather be prepared for that time
Mm.
than for me to just continue to twiddle my thumbs and just wait for that time to come and then I'm SOL.
Yeah, it's well said, man. Because I think if we zoom out far enough from our subjective experiences and look culturally at what is going on, I think we're entering into the hard times if we're not already there, just from like the global statistics on obesity. And it wasn't that long ago that starvation across the world was a bigger issue now, and obesity has outpaced it. That's how like convenient it is, and there are still many cultures that are struggling with scarcity. But for the most part, us in the developed West, the kind of person that's listening to this, who become
Right.
an outlier just by the virtue of like, hey, I'm going to take an hour to listen to something that's self-development focused, but they've still got to do it, right?
Right.
It's like we evolved in times of scarcity. We now live in environments of abundance, and if you don't kind of tame that puppy, it's gonna grow up and it's gonna eat you alive, because like you said, just too much cheap dopamine, too much access to whatever it is, whether it's food, whether it's entertainment. And I think that is why, as much as there's this 75% of Americans are overweight or obese, and heart disease isn't slowing down and cancer is increasing, that there is also this other trend where people are joining run clubs and high rocks is exploding and CrossFit is trying to make a comeback, because this shared suffering together actually really bonds people quite closely. And it feels good. It feels better for me to go and do something like a really hard workout and a sauna after than 4 hours of scrolling on TikTok. I'll tell you that much. It feels better, but the effort that's required to do it is obviously a lot higher. And I think that people really want that. They've just got to find their own way. So I'm curious, like with all of that on the table, like how does the sauna fit into this? Because it is kind of a microdose of suffering, if you will. How does the sauna play into potentially being one of the tools in the tool belt to push back against the culture of softness?
For sure. So when you look at sauna, everybody's obsessed with the actual peer-reviewed research that's coming out, the data on traditional sauna therapy. There's some good stuff on infrared as well, but a lot of the peer-reviewed research that's continuing to come out is on these hot saunas over 175 degrees, where the coils heat the stone heats the room, and it's. But when you really pull back all that data, what the sauna gives you are three things. If it's hot enough, it's going to get really, really hard. And you're going to want to get out, and you have to fight that urge to get out, which is a dynorphin response. That dynorphin, which is the opposite of endorphin, is what you're striving for in those super hot sauna sessions where you have to fight through that wall for 5 to 10 minutes and stick through, and you get that sense of accomplishment after. There's a lot of good application to that dynorphin response. And the more that you are able to push that barrier within reason, the more you're able to be able to cope with stress, the better
Mm,
you're able to be resilient. So the sauna manifests that. On the flip side, it also encourages, as a low barrier for entry, somebody who, let's say, is sedentary, or even somebody who's extremely active, an ability to do low effort, zero impact on the joint, zone two cardio.
mm,
You're just sitting there. If you have a heart rate monitor on, you will notice that your heart rate will spike enough to where, even last night, we had four guys in the sauna. One of them pro football player, one former college basketball player, and one similar guy like me, just an athlete. All of us had heart rates up in the 150s after 20 minutes. So I'm
wow.
already in zone three, sitting in the sauna. And so that it's great aerobic base building, great for heart health, great for blood pressure, and also fantastic for getting more nutrients into the muscles to
Mm,
be able to help with recovery. Um, and third, I think I am so bullish on this, and there's no, from what I understand and from what I've seen in sauna research, there's been nothing performed on relationship quality as it pertains to sauna use. And that is the most bullish thing I'm on with
mm,
sauna. Sauna is maximally and incredibly effective in forging fantastic relationships and conversations, because it pulls away people from their phones. It gets them actually giving each other eye contact, and you're having, honestly, some of the best conversation that you'll ever have,
mm.
because you're completely eliminated from all distraction. It's just you and the other person, or you and the group of people. And some of the best business ideas I've ever had, or the best business meetings I've ever had, have often stemmed from sauna cold plunge sessions,
Mm.
where it's singular focus, intentionality, and you're just going deep into conversation. And you're often surprised with the outcome, because the next thing you know, you have this idea and you're pulling the trigger on the idea on a business chat. If it's with my wife and I at the end of the day after we put down our kids, it's our time to be able to come together and recap the day, and then also talk about the next week, which then decreases the amount of stress on my
Yeah,
wife, me,
yeah.
because now we're having more times to be able to communicate and be intimate in terms of like just great quality conversation. So there's so many these relationship driven, like grit driven, as well as just quality of life driven aspects that aren't even being
Yeah.
studied with sauna, that you can't necessarily put your pulse on unless if you actually do it.
Mm.
So for us, it's really just getting as many people hands on with our product and getting them inside a sauna so that they know what it feels like.
I love that. And I'm with you. I'm pretty bullish on that as well. Because when I've had opportunities to share a sauna session with anybody, it's just so fruitful. It's so real. We end up talking about meaning of life or business, like you said, or existential problems, or like somebody really opens up. There's something about it. I think I'll bro science this a little bit, but there's something in particular about the way men bond, mediated through vasopressin, which basically shows that men really bond over shared struggle. And to your earlier point about sauna, there is an aspect of struggle in there because you're removing the phone. So you're not going in there and checking out and watching a YouTube video because your phone will overheat. So you've got to leave it out at the door, and then you're in there and it's hot as balls. And then you're like, oh, what do? I can't do anything other than breathe. I can't do anything other than regulate. So it's hard. If you're doing that together, there's this spike in vasopressin, there's this dopamine that's flowing around. And you mentioned pairing it with the cold as well, which is really interesting because I had Tom Seeger on the podcast, who's the guy
Nice.
that created Morozco Forge, and he talked about intimate relationships too, really benefiting from modulating these because
Yeah.
it also can spike oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins. And basically, like, there's so many other reasons beside the physical, which are, enormously, mental and cardiovascular and all of that stuff. But yeah, like this bonding in there with the boys or with your wife or with your partner is even more reason to find yourself in a sauna a little bit more, which is really cool. When did you even become aware of this as a tool? Is it something you used for a long time, or like when did the idea birth? It was like, wait a minute, saunas.
Yeah. If you would have told me 5 years ago that we would even be on this conversation on this podcast talking about saunas and me having any sort of ownership in a sauna company, I would have laughed at you.
Mm,
I was a personal trainer as my first career, concurrently with me commissioning as an officer in the Army. I soon got medically disenrolled from the Army from concussions, but
mm,
I continue to pursue personal training. Then I managed a gym. Then I became a co-owner of a gym and really got to understand business of how to go about business and what not to do with business through that. And that was the better part from 18 years old all the way to 27 or so years old. And through that process, found sauna through a customer of ours or a client of ours who I co-own SISU with now.
wow.
He went to XPT experience
Mm,
with Hamilton. Tim Ferriss was there. Gabby, Laird's wife, was there. And they got introduced to sauna. They then bought the same barrel that Laird had for their home. He had told me about it. We ended up getting a sauna at our house. That's where we got introduced to it. And then we found that there was the ability for us to be able to potentially wholesale / drop ship through this manufacturer. And we got to learn the entire space that way of like how to go about business, how not to in the sauna space. I'm coming from a service end, so shifting to a product end was very foreign for me. And so we did this side hustle, if you will, for the better part of 2 years. And there came a 1 year stretch where we had no sales at all. And
mm,
I was working leads, man. And we didn't have many, but we were really just marketing to Ohio, which is not necessarily the best market for sauna as compared to, say, Texas, California, Florida, the whole bit. So, I'm working these leads. My wife and I just had our first newborn. We had the gym going. My business partner with CSU, Nick Daddis, had just put a blind bid in with him and his wife to purchase a local library to convert it to a learner-driven school called Acton Academy,
mm.
which is like Apogee down in Texas, if you're familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're just like, man, what are we doing? Like why are we waste? It felt like a huge waste of time. And so we were on an early morning trail run. We got our headlamps on. We're on trail, and we decided then and there to end the dealership and just move on. And 10 minutes later on that same run, we started chatting more about our decision and like, wait a second, why did we decide to put an end to this drop shipping business? And essentially we were like, what if we were to create our own playbook
Mm.
and really take things into our own hands and just create what we believe would be a super purposeful and fun sauna company. And so Sisu like was really born out of this trail run of us just putting our head up in the clouds and just wishfully thinking like, oh, it would be cool to do an Amish handcrafted US source, US made sauna company that has like super quality hot heaters that have quick ship opportunities. And we've got saunas across the United States. Boom. We were like,
Wow.
all right, there's the picture. Who do we need to loop in to make this happen? And so that led us into Amish country here on the east side of Cleveland. My wife and I live in Avon Lake on the west side of Cleveland with our two kids. I grew up on the west side, so we're not far. And that led us to us, essentially partnering up with the Amish and then us stepping into manufacturing with them and deciding like, hey, we're going to release one SKU August of 2022, just the Edwin barrel, our 6-person barrel sauna, and let's see what happens. And at this point, it's 18 months, no sales at all, $0 in revenue. In fact, like we're losing money.
Wow.
And um, we sold our first sauna on August 1. And by the end of the month, I think we had sold like 8 saunas. And it
Wow.
was a huge deal because you're going from 18 months no sale to 8. And you're
Yeah.
like, what happened here? And
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out like, all right, what's giving us the marketability to be able to sell 8 saunas? We need to do more of that. And so that 8 led into 16, and then the 16 led into 20, and then 20 led into 40. And then like it continued to scale from there. And I'll never forget at the very start when we said like our 10-year target, for Sisu, like if we're gonna really build a sauna brand. Like, what does our 10-year target look like? And this is August of 2022. I wrote down 40 saunas a month,
Hmm.
August of 2032, and we hit that after 8 months. And
Wow.
it really was just like, wow, like God really blessed our business, and like we need to steward this and just do the right thing and really lean into this opportunity. And now we're 2.5 years in, and it's just been an absolute it's equally unbelievably purposeful, but also just as challenging. And
Yeah.
it's just so fun, and just the opportunities and the stories and the experiences are worth every bit.
It's amazing, man. Yeah, I can only imagine because growth comes with growing pains, right? Or new levels, new devils. So as you're just like scaling, you was like, I don't think we're gonna make this, and now you're like doing 40 a month, and then beyond, it's just like, oh, amazing. Oh, new problem, bigger fire. It's just like it never stops, right? It's kind of like parenting too. It's always something else. So that's really incredible, and I think yeah, it sounds like you got the God nod there, that you clung in long enough. You had the Sisu mentality. You had the grit to persevere and not throw in the towel when you're almost 2 years into this, like losing money. And all of a sudden it happens if you can stay in it long enough. And it's probably also a testament to doing it the right way, like not outsourcing to a different country, like bringing it back here to America. And you still do that to this day, right? Like
Yep.
what for you makes Sisu stand out above competitors? Like we don't need to poop on them and name names, but like, why is Sisu different? Why is it better?
Yeah, truthfully, like any company, we'll do a SWOT analysis and we'll be like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities,
Right.
threats. And like the threats portion is like, all right, like who's out there that we're competing with? And truthfully, we never take stock in like who we're competing with. If anything, like we want them to succeed. Like I genuinely, as a business owner, I know what it feels like when like things are not going well, and it's the worst feeling. I don't
Yeah.
wish that. I don't wish that feeling upon anybody. So like, if anything, I hope that like our competitors do well, and the people that we get to be in the space with do well, because then that like theoretically in turns mean that like we're doing well too.
Right.
So like, the space is big enough for all of us to be able to like really like support each other. But for Sisu, like what makes us like really unique is obviously it's a culture first, like Christian first business. Like for us, everything's family owned, U.S. source, U.S. made. All of our wood comes from Idaho. It's Western red cedar, shipped into Amish country, where then everything's milled, handcrafted by our Amish team. All of our stainless steel comes from Columbus, Ohio, comes up into Cleveland, and then everything's kitted out and then shipped out. The thing that's like the main core tenets for us have always been quality, simplicity, and trust.
Mm,
So the quality of the product as well as the quality of the experience, both pre-purchase and post-purchase. I'm definitely like a believer of like there's no perfect business and no perfect product, so we're always like evolving things, but we've always done our best to always take care of the customer no matter
yeah.
what. So the quality. Then there's the simplicity. Like for us, the reason why we really created Sisu is because of the experience that we had as consumers as well as drop shippers. So we realized that there was so much complexity to sauna, and there's all these little things that go into one sale. And a lot of that really came back to optionality for the customer, where I had to be so educated as a customer as to know what to buy for me to be able to press an add to cart and pull the trigger on a purchase, as well as a lot of sauna companies. You would have to go in and actually like jump on with the sales rep to complete a purchase.
Yeah.
There's
Hmm.
no way for me to be able to actually check out on the website. So for us, we're like, man, this is such an awesome opportunity for us to really simplify. Like, let's just create a package for people where it's just all inclusive, add to cart, just literally one button, boom, and as limited options as possible. So
Mm,
for us, that simplicity on the pre-purchase side as well as the post-purchase side of understanding like all the details, the assembly, like saunas no matter what are going to be complex. There's a lot of parts, there's a lot of electrical, there's a lot of things, but we've always done our best to just say, all right, how can we make this complex process simple? And I think that's really given us a lot of success up to this point. Especially as we scale, the big thing is how do we double down on simplicity
yeah.
amidst creating new revenue opportunities, new products, new experiences, potentially more options. Like how do we continue to simplify that optionality piece as we scale? That's a challenge that we're definitely like fit to figure out, and excited to learn through that process. And then the last part is trust. We've got 3-year warranties on all of our products, both the heater as well as the wood, which is a lot better than the
Yeah.
industry standard of 1 to 2 years. But also, for us, it's a family owned business. Like we've got kids, I've got a wife. I want to make ends meet here, but also like that only is contingent upon like you having the best experience possible, right? So our entire team is all in on doing the hard right over the easy wrong.
Love
So
that.
it's no matter what, we just care that you are having an exceptional experience all the way through, and like we'll hold your hand along the whole process to make sure it's totally squared away. So for Sisu, the differentiators really like for us are like the quality, simplicity, and trust. And like for us, like we're really galvanized around like the grit over glory mantra. And that in itself is like really driving the brand forward, because I don't want to be known as a sauna company. I want to be known as a company and like a community where we're doing hard things together, and
Mm,
sauna breeds resilience for us to be able to show up more and show up harder for those times when things get really hard. So I'm excited for this coming year. We're going to have a lot of product innovation well outside of sauna that I'm excited for the world to get their hands on, especially here in the United States. And just excited to see how it's received and
yeah.
have some fun with it.
Heck yeah, dude. That's awesome. And I love that focus on simplicity too, like you said, as well as quality, but the classic simple scales and fancy fails, that you're just doing it well and you're doing it right and you're keeping it simple and not overwhelming people and just providing that trust. And I think, I really appreciated your perspective as well of like not really focusing too much on the competitors, because you're playing more of an infinite game, which is, hey, we're trying to get on Finnish level here. We're trying to like populate the United States. So if they're winning, we're winning, because more saunas begets more saunas, more awareness. Because let's be honest, like if we're in the health space right now, you're listening to Andrew Huberman and you're listening to all these guys, you're following your guys' content, you're in the know. Saunas are great. We know that they can potentially reduce like cardiovascular disease risk by up to 50%. They might stave off neurological conditions. They can be immune modulating and potentially help you fight off cancer. Like these things are incredible, but still probably the average person either doesn't know about saunas or they don't have access, right? Because it's also a little bit of a premium product. So like squaring that circle, what's going to happen now, and I think it is happening to a degree, and you've probably seen these, but like the pop-up tent style saunas or the blanket style saunas, the infrared saunas are a little bit cheaper, but they don't get that heat. You've got things like Sauna Space, which is like a canvas thing with the red light bulbs. Like, I think they're all good because they're all giving people an opportunity, but I sometimes also worry about if it's effective. Like these new plastic, I almost pulled the trigger on one of the plastic sauna things, the pop up when I saw them, and then all of a sudden I was like, am I going to hotbox myself inside of a plastic bag? I don't think that might be the best thing. Now I'm thinking about it. I would rather have an Amish milled US source thing. So when you think about the total landscape of saunas, what are some of the red flags, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that came to mind while you were speaking there was like, I'm hyper aware that like CCU isn't for everybody. I'm totally down with that. The people that choose to get a sauna through us, like I expect them to have a great experience, and like we'll
Yeah.
do everything we can to take care of that. And you know, it, the fact that there's all these modalities to be able to get heat and people are choosing to invest in them is huge, because that means that we're starting to turn that corner where I really think COVID was that perfect time for people to really look at themselves in the mirror and say, all right, where's my health at? Where's my mental health at? And what can I do to make progress on that? People are starting to like really invest in their health. And I think people
Yeah.
are also understanding like the role of their HSA and funding their HSA and using pre-tax dollars to fund their health. And there's the True Meds of the world. And I think that those are, an infrared sauna, tent sauna, it doesn't matter. Like I just hope that somebody is just active.
Mm,
I spent up until what, I'm 29, up until I was 24 years old, I had never been in a sauna in my life. And I went in with like pretty good health and fitness up to 24. And like, don't get me wrong, like my health is a lot better now because of the consistency that sauna brings and the encouragement that that sauna session brings for me to show up the next day. Like that nudge is huge just from showing up in the sauna. But if somebody decides to go to their YMCA or their Globo gym, their friend's house to jump in a sauna, and that encourages them to live a more active life, it doesn't matter what brand. I just
nice.
genuinely want them to just get into a sauna or just move. And it's, the last thing I'd ever want to do is deter somebody from ever getting inside a sauna because they have to go through SISU. Like that's not, if somebody's got a sauna that they are using consistently, that is a win.
Yeah.
That is a win.
Yeah, dude. I've been so broke not that long ago that just getting in my shed in summer was my sauna. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
for sure,
like
dude. Yeah, I
at
feel
the
that,
end of
man.
the day, just if people are sweating, we're winning, you know. And then the people that resonate, like even with Heart and Soil, like we understand the supplements are a premium product, but if people value it and they're becoming more health conscious and they're realizing that they want to vote with the dollar, they want to support local systems, regenerative systems, American-made systems, they want to invest in their health, then it's awesome that these conscious companies exist that are going to provide a premium service for that. And this is the free marketplace of ideas and products, right? Which is wonderful. And I think what you guys are doing a really good job of is telling the story as well with like the content and the people that you're collaborating with to tell the content and let it just invite people into this vision that's like really exciting, that really is Sisu. You know, so like with that on the table, because you've partnered with some pretty remarkable people. You were just here in Cookville a month ago training with Rich Froning, the goat of CrossFit. You have taken some hefty liver shots from Chad Mendez. You've had Truett Haynes. You've talked to Cam Haynes. Like you've been around some pretty impressive people. Does anybody stand out as just like they blew you away?
Oh man, great question. Everybody blows me away in their own aspect. We uh, the relationship part of the business as it pertains like ambassadors and the people that represent Sisu, that's really my forte, and I do it alongside one of my best friends, Austin Mills, who's our director of partnerships. Um, we always make sure that whoever's partnering with Sisu is 100% 10 out of 10, check the boxes off. Like if we're going to go spend time with them, it's somebody that we know is a quality value add in terms of like culture fit,
Yeah.
internal ethos, and people that are more than anything just trusted, right? So um, it's hard to be like here's one, but I do feel like if there was one visit that really hit home was Cameron Haynes.
Yeah.
That was where I felt like my life had really changed in one trip because here's this guy who I just got done reading his book a month prior. We had gotten connected, and he's like, "Man, I'd love to, join the Sisu tribe." And I'm just thinking like, man, this is crazy. I just got done reading a book. I'm running like ultras. He's running ultras. I'd love to bow hunt. He's the best bow hunter, arguably in our generation, the whole
Yep.
bit.
Yep.
And so go out there and there's a I'll give you the detail on this. This was a wild trip. I get my flight from Cleveland was to Phoenix to Eugene. My flight from Cleveland to Phoenix was delayed, and so my connecting flight when I landed was within 10 minutes
Wow.
of like I had but I was clear across the airport in Phoenix, and Phoenix is a massive airport. I'm running probably like close to a sub 5 minute mile across the airport with my backpack on. My tools are like my bag of tools that I'll travel with for these build outs like are getting transferred over to the plane, and I show up and it was like Home Alone 2, like the door
Yeah.
shutting. I'm like, I gotta get on that plane. And they're like, all right, go ahead. Like, you got this. And I'm showing up, I'm sweating in my seat. I just ran a mile across the airport. And I get down and I land in Eugene and I meet Cam. I didn't introduce myself because I'm assuming that our team and his team, because Cam and I at this point had never spoke to
Right.
one another. We're like, yeah, hey, like Pete is going to meet Cam. He's the one that's going to build it out with Cam. Cam was like, "Hey man, like how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh great, excited to do this with you today." And he's like, "All right, sweet. Like I'm gonna go for a run. I'll be back in a couple hours. Let me if you have any questions." I'm like, "All right, cool. Like no sweat." So like I start ripping on this thing, and it occurred to me like, wait a second, I did not introduce myself to Cam. He doesn't know who I am. Our teams did not discuss that. He thought I was a local Eugene kid, like building
Right.
on us.
Right.
He comes back and like, "Yo, hey, Cam, I'm Pete Nelson. I'm the founder of Sisu. We just feel super blessed to be able to do this with you." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." And so we started hitting it off, and we're just jamming for like an hour. And the craziest thing, man, is the only expectation on this trip was that I knew I was gonna meet Cam, give him a handshake, build it with him, / build it out for him, and take a photo with him. That was it. I show up the next day to finish up some stuff, and he comes out. He's like, "Hey Pete, here's what I'm thinking, man. In an hour, I'm going to finish up with my body work. You and I will go for a run on Spencer's Butte. We'll come down. We'll get it like 8 to 10 miles in. I'll take you to breakfast. We'll come back. We'll do sauna, cold plunge, shoot some content, and then I'd love to have you on the podcast."
Wow.
And it's like, what? I immediately started shaking, because this is over, over a year ago.
Awesome,
And this
man.
is Sisu's a year in basically at this point. I'm like, what is life? And so the whole day went great. Cam was amazing. It was like talking to, anybody, just a
Yeah.
really good dude. And, I remember calling my wife, and then also like one of my really good friends that night. And I was like in tears because it was just so overwhelming of just the opportunity
Mm,
that was provided. And that, if I didn't run across the airport, I wouldn't have been able to make that flight. And there was no other flight that day. And like, that meant that like none of this was going to happen. It's just like, man,
wow.
thank God I was in shape. And like, I got across that airport in time, and that Cam was so selfless and just down to hang. And so I got back 2 weeks later, the podcast goes live, and it was one of the craziest experiences. Like our sales team were booked. We had all these inquiries, like sales, like were continuing to pop. It was crazy. And I'm just super grateful for that, because it got me at like the two biggest things were you can't assume that people are going to know who you are or
Right.
anything. You have to make sure that you let people know, like through your action, like who you are and what you're about, and like don't be afraid to like stand up for yourself and like
Yeah.
introduce yourself. And then also, like, you have to stay prepared. You have no idea what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, but if you stay prepared, there's opportunities that will arise that you can then pull the trigger on, if you are mentally like in a spot to where I could dive in on this opportunity and go. And so I'm grateful that I was a runner, because otherwise I'm not on that plane.
Yeah.
That- you know what I mean? So like there's these inflection points, and that was just one of the crazy stories that we've had with our partnerships. And Cam's the real deal.
That is so cool, man. What a story. Yeah, and talk about just like the potential for you fumbling that bag and never getting to do like a lift run shoot with Cam, and all based on your level of physical preparedness because you've put in countless early mornings when you probably didn't want to do it, countless extra miles when you didn't really feel like doing it, probably stuff that you do in the kitchen, stuff you do from recovery perspective. And then in those moments, you're like, it is all worth it. It is. It's way less cool because it doesn't involve Cam Haines. But just yesterday, my wife got her minivan stuck and it was spinning out and we couldn't get it out. And the last thing I said was, let me get at the back of this thing and push it. And we got it up the hill. When I pushed it, I was like, I felt like,
Well, let's
yeah,
go,
that's my
man.
moment. I saved the day. Strong dads for the win. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
man.
It's awesome.
You just
It's a really good feeling because I think sometimes, right, we do all of this stuff and it's funny because sometimes I'm driving to the gym at 4:20 in the morning and I'm like, we're so weird, right? I'm driving to this box to go and punish myself with all these other dudes and we love each other, but we try and beat the crap out of each other. And I'm going to drink coffee afterwards. And I'm like tired, but I love it. And I'm just like, it's so interesting. But then in these moments, you get this real sense that like it's worth it and it's fun. And, it's combating against all of that cultural softness and the easy life. Because in that kind of alternate universe, you don't make that flight. And that's a completely different trajectory, right?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's that there's just been so many of these crazy scenarios that have happened where I never realized how much like my physical and mental fitness would be such a large portion of like my job now. But
Mm,
being able to like go and my rule of thumb is like, if I'm gonna go and hang with these people, like I want them to know that like I'm gonna push you. I'm not gonna just be a fly in the wall. Like outside of Chad Mendez, I'm not an MMA guy. I'm not a spar guy, but I was definitely a fish out of water there. But I want to like show up and like give them a push and like let
yeah.
them know that like, we really mean what we mean with Sisu. And like we use the sauna as a tool for us to be able to like push harder next. So that's we've just been super blessed with a lot of great relationships and so many fun, crazy stories. And um, man, just very grateful for it all.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I think about this. I'm sure you've heard it before. Like how you do one thing is how you do everything, or how you
Yeah.
do anything is how you do everything. And it sounds like the kind of philosophy you're bringing into business too. We started with, talking about how that's so important for your kids because they're always watching. But even to the fact that you're going to be the man on the ground, going out and doing some of these builds with these incredible people, and being a gamer. Just having the capacity to be a gamer. So even if it's a Chad Mendez, who's, just for the people that don't know, he's a MMA legend, BJJ black belt, stud wrestler, hands of bloody stone. It's crazy watching that guy hit. But even though you might not be an MMA black belt, that you can at least, push a workout with him or put on the body pad. And I saw you taking some of those liver shots from Chad. Like, yeah, the normal person is going to be put in the hospital off that. So yeah, I think there's something really powerful in that philosophy of how you do one thing is how you do everything, and trying to operate holistically with this just excellence about you in all that you do. And you're no stranger to that, of course. Like, you've ran ultra marathons in Antarctica. Like, I forgot you were doing 30. This will be the 30th ultra marathon by the time you turn 30. And I've seen some of your videos on Instagram. You're strong too. You're carrying a good, healthy amount of muscle mass. What is it about training for you that why is it such a big part of your life? What does it afford you as an individual, most importantly, to be consistent with all of that stuff?
Before, I felt like I would train for, I wouldn't say vanity, but it almost felt like I was training for the opposite of what I really believe now with the grit over glory. Is like, really, I was training to like be respected. That's the best way to describe it. Like the first bit of ultras, I wanted to let my dad know that I could hang with him.
Mm,
Right. So like I would run like that, and then eventually I'd start to post some on to Instagram, and it was cool because people were like, "Whoa, like that's crazy, you're doing that." And it got me thinking, like, man, I can't stand that, because there's no internal drive to that. It's really
mm,
like for the status of it. And it wasn't probably till I was like 24, 25 where I started to have like this switch, and like my training started to really change. And I finally realized like the reason why I love showing up to strength train and to run and to do all these things is because of I love the mental aspect to it.
yeah.
It makes me so sharp for my wife and my kids and my business and my family. And it helps me stay prepared for Lord knows what is going to pop up on the radar. And man, like that's a huge motivator. Like I haven't ran yet today. And I know when I feel off is
Yeah.
because I haven't ran today. But it's like my cup of Joe.
Yeah.
I need to run, and I need to lift because it just fulfills that mental aspect for me. And there's like some sort of like spiritual aspect to it as well. I love the iron sharpens iron mentality of, like if I'm gonna put in the work, like I want to do it with other people too. So I want to bring along people for the ride. So we've got a group of dads that'll meet up at our garage gym here, like right outside the door, three mornings a week, 5:15 a.m. without fail, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Show up. We'll have 4 dads in. Everybody's got 2 to 3 kids, and we get after it from 5:15 to 6:45. We're all waking up our kids at 6:45, and we're going about the day.
Yeah.
That to me has been a huge motivation too, because like I need to show up for them, and if they're gonna literally come to my house to train, I have to be awake. So that accountability is huge. So I love the community aspect. I love the mental aspect. And lastly, if there's something like if there's one like selfish thing is like I want to look the part, man. Like
Yeah.
if I'm gonna say like this is what Sisu means, and like the ethos of Sisu, like I have to look the part. There'd be something completely ingenuine if I did not look the part.
Yeah.
So it's I've always enjoyed the hybrid nature of strength training and running, and got some awesome ultra marathons in the books coming up here soon, and I'm excited about. And I do need at some point here to put a powerlifting total on the books. But one of my goals is to be able to do a 1,300-pound total this the same week as a sub 255 marathon. I'd be really, really pumped about that, just
Wow.
from the selfish side.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love everything you just said, and it resonates so much. Everything, like I try and take a white belt mentality to life and believe that everybody can teach you something. And at the same time, I'm not going to be as willing to take financial advice from the person that's homeless, or marriage advice from the person with 5 divorces, or health advice from somebody who's obviously not healthy, right? There is something about living in integrity and being like, people just, they see it, they feel it. Even in this world where there's so much content to sift through, we still have an amazing bullshit detector. Like, we can smell it from a mile off when somebody's being fake, when they're
Yeah.
talking out of 2 sides of the mouth, when they're saying and talking a big game, but behind the screen, they're not living it. It shines through. And I think that is one thing that people will pick up from you if they don't already follow, is like, yeah, this guy's walking the walk, right? And it's cool if you can talk the talk, but like, walk the walk, show me. And I think that's really important. And I love that reflection about how maybe like your fuel for getting started was a little bit like a chip on your shoulder, like, I'll show you, I'll prove it to them. But you recognized at some point that like, it can get you going, but it's not going to keep you going. And it's a bit of a toxic fuel if you use it for long enough. And I had the exact same story, man. That's what put me into MMA. That's what got the cage door locked behind me. I was trying to prove to the world that I was like a tough guy. And eventually I realized, like, oh, this isn't going to work long enough. I'm going to end up broken, brain dead. And then it became about me, and it became now about my family and being there for them and being able to show up and being a leader and trying to inspire people to, take their health back and reclaim their birthright to radical health. And if I'm going to do that, I have to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So just a lot of synergy there, man. I think it's really, really incredible what you're doing. What is the, because you're a big goals guy, and it's clear that you've got some big plans in the future on your personal fitness journey, as you just alluded to. But when it comes to like SISU and the big, hairy, audacious goal, like, what are we thinking now? Are we ever going to get to a point where we're like on the Finnish territory? Can we, sauna max? Can we get everybody with a backyard sauna one day? Where are we going to finish?
Man, I don't know. It's such a good question. I actually got asked by three people today what the 10-year plan is for SISU. Three different people,
No
and
way.
and I've given them the same answer, and I'm so affixed right now on like the next year slash 2 years, and it's important to know like where you want to go with the business, but
Yeah.
um, I just feel like, again, like being like faith driven, I feel like God's asked me to steward this business for him in a way that he's provided a lot of opportunity. And if in 10 years that means that we have, to me, like if I were to paint the perfect picture, um, the long-term goal would be that Sisu is really a lifestyle brand where we built a community around doing hard things and supporting one another, and really fostering connection and grit. Like that to me is what Sisu needs to look like. And it just so happens right now that we sell saunas.
Mm-hmm.
This year is the first year that we're going to sell things that are beyond sauna. And I'm really excited about that because it'll be the first dip into like really brand building where Sisu now can be with anybody in at any time, anywhere. And I think that's where I get really excited because it's the reminder, like when somebody sees Sisu, and if you understand the definition of Sisu, the perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit, and you understand our brand ethos, it's now I've got this edge, and I've got this reminder that I need to go in. I need to go
Mm-hmm.
all in now. So really like painting that picture. I don't know if God's going to be like, hey, 5 years from now, like time's up, time to do a new endeavor and then hand this off to a new CEO and keep rolling. I don't know if that means that there's going to be a crazy liquidity event that's going to affect all the families within Sisu and our personal family. That's just too good to be true. I don't have those answers, but I do know like the next 2 years are going to be a freaking ride.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to like go super, super deep into the things that we already do well, and also product innovate in a way to where it's going to really bring out the core ethos of Sisu and different product innovations.
Yeah. And it sounds like regardless of what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, you're just focusing on controlling the controllables and putting yourself in a position to capitalize on whatever those is, whether it's a, God forbid, a disaster, but you say, okay, well, this is what's required of me now, much like the story you started with your mom and dad and going through the brain aneurysms and things like that. It's like, I'm ready for that too. And if it's this opportunity, we'll jump on it. And I think that's all you can ever really do. And I'm kind of glad, selfishly, that you don't have a 10-year plan, because people ask me similar questions, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
barely have a 10-day plan. I'm
yeah.
just,
I
I'm
don't even know what I'm
focusing
doing
on
with
good habits, and I'm trusting that if I just like release the tiller a little bit and do this giant experiment of trying to be a good person and trying to put good out into the world and living on some solid values, that it'll figure itself out. And
that.
if it doesn't, then maybe God has a greater plan, and we'll deal with that too.
To me, I think about this very regularly. Somebody asked me, "What if there was a liquidity event with Sisu? What would you do? What would be different?" And I got to think, I'm like, I wouldn't. My lifestyle would be the exact same right now. There wouldn't be a single change. Like I would wake up early, I would lift, I would get my kids up out the door. I'd probably spend some more time with my kids, if anything.
Yeah.
I'll let them go to school. I'd do something purposeful with my time for work. I would run around lunchtime. I would go back to doing something purposeful with work or hang out with the family and kids, and then I'd spend the rest of my night with my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
That sounds like the perfect day on repeat.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, I'm not motivated by any like the financial part. I just don't care about.
Yes.
Like if we're doing the right thing, like I'll be able to take care of my family, and like the families that are within SISU that are working within SISU, like they'll be able to take care of their stuff too. I'm just not driven by that.
Yeah, dude. If no amount of money would change how you live, you're already rich. And I
Yeah,
think that's it. And I feel the same way. If some magic wand bestowed me with $10 million overnight, I would be like, well, that's cool, because it definitely gives you some breathing room. But okay,
for
well,
sure.
what am I going to do now? And it would look very, very similar to what I'm doing. I'd want to have awesome conversations with awesome people. I'd want to get people motivated to be healthy. I'd go and train the same way.
Yeah.
I might finally get that truck that I've been after, but otherwise
Yeah, for
it would
sure. I
be
was gonna say, for me, like I would take the things that are giving me like success and like amplify them more. Like
yes.
how can I do more of that? And like how can we bring like more people along for the ride? And then like for us with Sisu, we've got the Sisu Impact Program, which is our philanthropic endeavor, where every month we're gifting a sauna to a veteran
Awesome.
in need who cannot financially afford a sauna that has a disability. And then concurrently, we started Hell on Hogs back coming on 3 years ago. This is our third year out of my dad's experience with cancer. So his surgery was 12 hours long. And so we were like, all right, let's do a 12-hour max distance race up in my dad and I's favorite hill in Cleveland. And so we thought we were going to have 10 people. The first year we had 95, and this
Wow.
year we're anticipating 500 people. And all that is meant to be all the dollars raised from registrations and donations goes to cancer patients who cannot afford their surgeries and their medical treatment. So like Sisu is like a philanthropic vehicle that
Mm,
is huge internal motivation for our team, and then concurrently like our Nelson Family 501c3 Foundation that is in collaboration with Helen Hogsback. Like to me, like if I'm gonna spend more time, it'd be like doing more of that. Like that's where I think that there's a lot of good to be had, and I want like our kids and our friends and our family to be a part of that, because there's something about like when you are paying it forward to somebody. I can't stand giving it back, because that means like, oh, I'm giving it back to people that I'm like above. Like, dude, I'm not
mm.
above anybody. Like, I'm gonna pay it forward to that person that really needs it. That gets me really, really excited, because I think that's where we could do a lot of good with Sisu and our personal stuff.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, it's really cool, because it feels like the sauna is the icing on the cake, that is just like the cherry on top of the mission, which is really empowering people to adopt this mindset, to adopt this life philosophy, to do rad things, to live with a little bit more grit. And yeah, if they want to get a sauna, that's pretty dope as well. But like more
For
than
sure.
anything, just like empowering people and inspiring them. But if they do want to get a sauna, where do they go? Where do they keep up with you? What you're up to? The YouTube channel, the content, the website, all of that fun stuff.
So you could find me on Instagram and YouTube at Peter Nelson II. And I want you to know, like, YouTube's really new, so it's really surreal to even say YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
Just know it's like raw and fun, and we're learning on YouTube right now. You could buy and see what we're doing with Sisu. SISULifestyle.com is our website address, and I'm always open ears. So just shoot me a DM. I always love being able to engage with our community and get to meet new people.
Dude, awesome conversation. Fam, go like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Do them a solid, because their videos are really fun, and I think you're going to see a lot more coming from that team as well. And Pete is a madman. He's doing some crazy stuff, so follow, because he's going to give you a kick up the butt to get out there and do some cool stuff. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much for joining us. And you lot stay radical. Jump in a sauna if you can. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Peace out. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.